exist because it was hosted by Tabs. Actually, it was hosted on Notion. But so we had a project not similar. It's totally different. It's called Wild West Witches, which is basically like it's basically cowboys combined with witches, so like magical cowboys. But there was essentially like 4 or 5. There's 4, almost like Harry Potter houses. That was the theme, kind of. Not Harry Potter houses specifically, but they were like cowboy themed houses. So like we had the hats, who are represented as like the intellectual cowboys, right? They live in the desert because the big hats keep their head cool. And so they were like the desert cowboys, and they had a focus on like, technology and sort of being smart. And then you had like the buckles, who were, they were like all about stability and sort of what do you call it, more traditional, and they're like the traditional cowboys kind of, but they lived in the mountains and they were all about stability, and they had like the ways they used their magic would change based on where they lived, and their designs might look different. And then we had like the jungle cowboys, who were the more like, anyway. So we had a whole thing about it. Anyway, but the cool thing about that when we were doing it, thanks Kath, was well, not me. I shouldn't even, I can't even take credit for this. The initial idea was kind of started here on stream, but I can't really take credit for this. I have to give credit to NewTap, who is an active member in the community. I don't think she's here right now. But anyways, she created a Notion page where anyone, or technically I think it was just the main people, but we could add any image to it, and we could add text and add things. So if people wanted to submit like an image they drew, we could drop it into the right category. And so it would build out this community, like for each of the 4 tribes, you could add images and people could do designs. They could do creature design or full illustration or whatever you wanted, right? It could be character design, and you basically would create your characters for this world. And it was very open-ended. So that reminds me a lot of what you're talking about. So I was just wondering if there's a place where people can submit and drop work and kind of view it as a collective. Like, and it may not exist yet, but I'd be curious. Okay, let's see. My goal initially was to build a world for which anyone could draw from and make their own project from. Over time, it has grown to different things, from musicians to add songs to food, building 101. To all. Oh, interesting. All sorted and intact via your Discord. Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, so anyway, I wasn't trying to like talk about this random project that I'm no longer working on. I didn't want to like pitch a project that I'm literally haven't done anything for in a long time. But I was just trying to draw a comparison between sort of slotting, like, oh, I really like this. Maybe I read up on one of your biomes and I'm like, I really like that biome. I'd love to do a character design for it. That kind of thing. Because if that is what it is, which sounds like it based on what you described, I think a lot of people would be interested in joining in. I feel like there's definitely there could definitely be some interest there. Red Rock, wait, Red Rock, no, wait, what? Is this a new account, or is this just happen to also have Red Rock in your name? Red Rock, how are you? The Ideal City, thank you for the follow. And Carlika at 83, thank you for the follow. How are you, Ideal and Carly Cat? Or it's Carly Cat. Okay, gotcha. That would make sense. Probably Carly. I don't know. Maybe it's not. My goal this year was not only to continue the world building, but also to build an RPG system to pair with it. Oh, cool. Yeah, we actually had this very similar idea. Very, very similar. I mean, totally different projects, but like the whole world building project that is sort of, open source and there's, maybe magic, there's like an RPG element to it. Okay. This is your second account. Okay, gotcha. Why did you make another account? Just curious. Why do that? I'm never understood what having multiple Twitch accounts does, but I am curious, so please enlighten me. Kath, you're off to bed. Have a lovely rest of your stream. Thank you. Have a good night. Thanks for being here. Hope you're well, and good luck on, or not good luck, but congrats on your presentation again. I have to lurk for a hot bit. No worries. We'll be around. All right, take care. Thank you again for coming in and sharing your work and your project. It sounds exciting. So yeah, right now I'm kind of trying to figure out the colors still, even though we're like an hour after we should have voted, or after we did vote. Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to mess around with the colors a little. I don't know if I want this bright of light. I don't know. I gotta play around with this a bit, because I am pretty happy with some of these things so far. Here is your blue-green piece. Don't destroy it. Oh, I'm gonna destroy it. It always happens. Also, this is like the worst day for this. Okay. No. I don't think I'm gonna destroy it. I think I'll be able to maintain it. So what do I want? I want these trees to be the focus, kind of. Well, ooh, I've already almost shot myself in the foot. Jay, how are you? Maybe it can become the best day for this? Maybe. Because I wasn't able to stay long to my main... Wait. Able to log into my main account on mobile. I don't know why, so I made... Oh, okay, that's fair. Well, just so you know, I'm sure you do know this, but if you are somebody who ever plans to redeem a print through channel points, I will not allow you to redeem them from both accounts. Right? You're gonna have to pick one. Right? No, just there's no scamming the system. If I'm sending prints to the same location, one account per location. Just throwing that out there ahead of time for anyone who thought maybe they were gonna be sneaky. Although, yeah. Or maybe I should remove that rule. Just kidding. To try and get people to lurk with tons of accounts. No, I don't want that. I don't want to... My other 9 accounts are all in vain, I know. Right? Yeah. I don't even know if you knew that you could redeem prints, but maybe I have. Maybe I've sent them to you before. I don't know. I have no idea who I've sent prints to. I've sent so many out at this point. Although most people who I've sent prints to, I've sent them to them multiple times, right? It's typically the regulars. Anyway, do I like this? I mean, it's kind of... I feel like this is, if this is a tree back here, like, there's nothing to this. So my question is, what is interesting about this? Like, what is this image about? This is the question. This is the question. No, this is the question that Hawaii Arts was asking on their stream. Like, what is the purpose of this painting? And it wasn't meant as like a negative thing. It's just like, sometimes you just start painting and you genuinely don't know what the heck you're doing. Like, do I have a story I want to tell? Or do I have... is there a point to this image? And I think this is one of those cases where I just... Let me mess around for a bit. Yeah, I agree. The lake in the front is interesting. But also, do I put something in the lake? I could also move it up to have a focus on the lake. But there's also a lot of focus up here. I mean, we could go like this, right? Just drag all this stuff out. Also, what thumbnail number was this? Let me see. File open. I feel like there's a thumbnail number here somewhere. Oh, is this really? Oh, this was 7. Was this actually the last one? No. 5 was the last one we did, I think. Needs a helicopter, if you will. You know what? I think you're right. Well, maybe if I would have, lower the horizon line and just put a giant helicopter up here, like that. I don't know what do helicopters look like. Is this a helicopter? There. Totally a helicopter. I don't know how many chopper thingies it has. There we go. Oh, crap, that was the wrong layer. Now that works. I'm gonna go like this. Sure, now it can fly across. There we go. No, I don't think it needs a helicopter, unfortunately. As cool as helicopters are. Maybe not. You spend all your points on 5-minute sketches. Yeah, that's fine. And not everybody wants to, give me a mailing address. So that is understandable. Thanks for indulging me. Yeah, no worries. I do kind of feel... Okay, I'm going to change the scale. The scale is going to go crazy wild here. And maybe I'll end up ruining it. But so what I'm going to do is just make a new layer. And I'm just going to start by adding... what's the best way to describe this? I think the best way that I can describe this is adding one overlapping shapes and not necessarily overlapping, but like concentration of detail. And so rest in peace, lakes, because you are no longer a thing. Oh, what if I do this? Merge visible. Go like that. Move that over. I mean, I'm definitely going to add rivers instead of lakes. This might look silly, but I might end up ruining it. But I don't think so. I think we'll manage. Okay, so I'm trying to introduce some sort of interesting shapes here to sort of guide our eye into the distance, but also not too, I don't know, I'm not sure quite yet. I like these little blue-green spots in the middle. I don't know what they are or what they could be. And maybe there's some little stuff back here. And maybe there's some fun stuff back here. I mean, this is looking much more modern. Like it almost looks like it could be a real place. Kind of. Sort of. And I only say that because it feels like there's buildings in the background. What if we go like... So there's a Magic the Gathering set called Kaladesh, which its world building was basically like a Renaissance with magic. Like, think of like Inventor's Fair. I mean, that was literally the name of a card. But like, or Tomorrowland would be another good example. And it had this sort of magical vibe. You know what they have in modern settings? Helicopters. Yes, they do. True. Getting more and more. See, this is the closest I've been to like, yeah, that could be a thing. No, even then. Wada. Hey, how's it going, Sushi? Okay, well, I think whoever mentioned the top of this painting is, or the water is the most interesting. I concur. It's also the first time I've said that word on stream. Okay. So the reason I think it's better is because I want to add, I just like this stuff. I think maybe it's because Zilly raided, and anytime he raids us, I start thinking about all the beautiful brushwork, and this is just a fun opportunity to do that. Also, there's just a fun opportunity to really embrace the lines and the fluidity. It's going nice. How about you? I'm doing really well, thank you. I am doing well. A little tired, but I'm kind of in ranty mood. Also, that brings up the point, if anyone has any questions about what the heck I'm doing or why I'm doing what I'm doing, or any question, anything, give me things to say. Because I like explaining what I'm doing, but I don't always know what to explain. So for example, maybe in this one, I don't know if I like that the horizon, the focal point is dead center. So I'm just gonna literally grab this and shift it over here. And then I'm gonna literally grab this and shift it over here and see what happens. It might be too wild now. Did I just make this way worse? I just made it way worse. Hold on, let me change it. That was too much. A little bit, and the bottom can go a little bit too. No, I did it too much. I think that works. See, I don't... I don't know if I think that works. So I think this works, but I think... So it's funny, speaking of composition, because I think this is a good thing to talk about, because I feel like a lot of times people think of composition, like, this is what kind of bugs me a little bit about sort of like rules of thirds and all that, because I think obviously it's a starting point, right? It's a framework to have, right? It's kind of like if you don't, don't break the rules until you know the rules kind of thing. But a lot of times, and maybe I'm going to draw this out. This is going to be my little composition rant, because I like composition. It's one of my favorite things. I'm not claiming to be amazing at it, but let's just say, hypothetically, we have a drawing or a painting. Yeah, it's a guide, not a rule. Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I've seen so many times people will have a sketch, right? I'm just going to make a sketch, say, here's my focal point. It's going to be represented by a somewhat complicated shape. Maybe there's triangles, and there's a door that has a contrast, right? Oh, nope, no contrast yet. And maybe this is more triangles and more triangles. Okay, here's our focal point, right? And we have lines. I'm not totally, whatever. Hold on, let's do this. Okay, we have lines pointing into the middle, right? We have mountains back here. Whatever, just random stuff, right? Trees, clouds that can even swoop in, right? Okay, we have like stuff here kind of pointing in here. Maybe we have a secondary focal point, you know, a character. Let's draw same line weight, right? So here's our character, and we have a little road. Okay, so here's our composition, right? Let's go like this. So now we're really curving in. We're leaning into it hard. So I feel like this is totally okay, right? This is fine. One of my issues though is that so often you'll see a painting like where, you know, this object is like over here, and somebody will like objectively say, "Oh, you should move it over to the third." Well, my issue with that is that if it's gonna stay in line form, like without painting, just lines, I 100% agree, right? This would look great. But the problem is that sometimes once you start adding values, right, it can throw it off. So for example, maybe you want this tower to be dark, and then this side of the screen is light, right? Suddenly you've just created contrast. It doesn't matter where the focal point, like it didn't matter where the drawing was, right? If you can't see, if the thing is covered up, I should be doing this on a separate layer. Actually, let me do it underneath. That would be better. Like, what just happened? Right, so like, to me, it doesn't matter. Like, the line drawing doesn't necessarily make the thing have a focal. Like, you can change the focal point. Because if you think of this as like a scale, right? If this is like a scale, like a fulcrum, and you're balancing things, like this painting might be balanced now, but once you start adding values, like a lot of dark value over here, right? Suddenly it's piling up and it weights the scale, right? Like you can tip the scale with other things than simply here is an object, right? This object doesn't for example, if you light this object, let's say this object is dark, right? But you have some sun on it, right? So let's add some sun. So if this object were lit on this side, to me, this is pulling the weight, the center mass of this object over here, right? So it might make sense if you're going to light your object on that side to actually scoot the whole thing over this way, right? A little bit. Because the focus now, right, is no longer dead center. You've literally changed the focal point by adding light to it, right? So let's just add in some of this stuff, some values. So I'm always a little annoyed when people don't account other factors. Like, I mean, I don't, like, it's hard from a procedural point of view, right? Like, it's really, really hard to know what you're going to do with your lighting beforehand. But I think it makes sense to do a few value sketches and then rework the drawing, or, you know, maybe these are your values. Maybe you want this part. Like, for example, if you're going to put lighting here and here and here, right? And you're going to paint all of this stuff super bright too. Like, this is now a different composition, right? Like, maybe this is all in the dark and then this is light, right? It might end up being that you just changed your composition and you didn't need to, like, the lines are now pointing in different spots, right? Because the lines are made up of big shapes and where the shapes lead. And I feel like a lot of this stuff isn't always represented in like pen and ink drawings. Anyway, I don't know how you guys feel that way, but sometimes it annoys me a little bit when like all of the focus is on balancing the objects in the painting and not the lighting. That's what I'm trying to say. That was literally the whole rant, was objects aren't the only focal point. Like, you can also have a weighting of values and a weighting of light and a weighting of color, right? If you were to have additional focal points of saturation. Anyway, that was my hot topic rant. Sleepy time. Take care, Red Rock. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's getting late. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Weighting of detail. Yeah, exactly. Anything that can provide contrast, right? So it could be contrast of edges. They can make things blend in or stand out, right? It can be contrast of light. It can be contrast of values and color and texture and temperature. Well, scale, I think, is worked in the drawing, right? Typically. But yeah, no, you're right, though. You're right. Weighting of scale. I mean, for example, if you were to add a lot of atmosphere, right, and make the thing, where is it? I lost it. Right? If you were to come in here with a lot of atmosphere and be like, let's add atmospheric perspective. Oops. And you push this thing way the heck back, right? And now it looks like it's super far away. And it's like, well, maybe it just doesn't stand out compared to, say, this dude who is now, being backlit by the lighting, right? Maybe you have like lighting back here that's making this dude stand out, right? And he's just like literally silhouetted perfectly. Like, who's more in focus now, right? Like, you got, like, is this thing really, maybe take away the side lighting, right? Is this thing really the focal point still? Maybe. I mean, it kind of is. It's a focal point, but it certainly changed, right? And I guess technically the weighting didn't, right? It's still on, it still carries the weight. But like, if you were to maybe combine some shapes, add a little bit of that, right? Maybe this lead up is in light, right? It might be the case that you're drawing the weight over here, or if you push this side really, really far, right, with random values or something, it could be the case that you're actually pushing the focus too far, right? Maybe you have light back here. So I mean, I think this is exaggerated, of course, but anyway, yeah. So sometimes I find myself like, and I guess the reason that this sparked this rant, because when I move my composition like this, sometimes you're like, oh, this is actually moving it too far, but you can actually undo that by knocking back some of the contrast over here, which actually adds weight back to this object over on this side, right? Because before, if this big dark shape pulled the whole shape this way, like that way, but by removing it, just by knocking back some of those values, I'm removing some of the weighting of it, right? It's no longer such a heavy object. So I can maybe get away with a little bit closer to the edge, right? It's kind of like a vignette, where a vignette just kind of blurs the edges, or darkens it, right? Where it kind of just makes it less important. Like, that whole corner is now less important. Yeah, it's not, so not only focus, I mean, yes, yeah, absolutely. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, when you're thinking of composition specifically, right? Like, objects alone aren't the only thing that have contrast and weight. And so it's not just place object on focal point, right? I have a character, put him on the third, right? No, it's not like that, because it might be the case that your eye is being drawn to an area near, the rule of thirds that is actually a path that leads to the focal point, right? Like, it's not, or maybe it starts, like, it might be off-centered, for example. It might be over here, but maybe it's still, this is the focal point, but your character, right, the object in your painting doesn't have to be the main, like, just because you have an object, right, in your painting doesn't mean it is the, like, it might be, its center of gravity doesn't have to be here, right? Like, if you light it on one edge, it might be heavier on that side. If you add a lot of contrasty other things on this side when in your detailing, maybe it would do you some good to shift the whole thing this way, right? That way you're, all this nonsense that you've added, right? All this texture or detail or whatever, because it's kind of pulling it, right? It shadows can pull stuff, lighting can pull things, especially lighting. Anyway, so like, sometimes, I guess my real point is that I think sometimes in correcting composition, like, if you feel your composition is off balance, it's not always a matter of just like selecting the element. and moving it. I guess that's what I'm pointing at. Like, it's not like, oh, this thing is off-centered, let me just move it over here. Well, that could be a solution, but you could have other solutions, right? Your solutions could be, let's add some contrast to these branches, right? And maybe remove some from these branches, right? That's going to push attention inward, right? So that's a way to push it inward. You could also add additional things, you know, additional points of contrast over here. Maybe I put some highlights over in this side, right? Now, this is still, this whole mass, I mean, it's not just like one object, right? It's not like I want this branch to be my focal point. No, it's I want this thing to be, right? Anyway, that's, you know, I don't know. I feel like that's something that's kind of important, that I feel like so many times people just are like judging compositions entirely based on their line work, which I don't know, I guess it's okay, but then you see people like James Gurney, right, where the light itself will be the focal point, right? He'll draw an entire house, right? He'll just draw a house, and you're like, okay, well, if you were to just judge his sketch, right, and his house looks like this or something, right? Here's a, I don't, is that what a house looks like? Maybe there's a window here. Okay, so like James Gurney, he might draw a random house, but then what he'll do is he'll light it in such a way that, you know, you have this little sliver of light or something, right? And he'll put this little sliver of light. The focal point isn't the doors. It wasn't any it's the focal point is the lighting itself, right? So you could do this entire image and literally have a focal point that wasn't in your sketch, right? And I think that's kind of my point, is that the focal point you could have a painting that looks terrible in sketch form in theory, right? You could have this be your line sketch, right? But then just by the way that you carve the light out, you could make it work, right? You could, like, maybe this isn't the focal point. Maybe the focal point is all the fantastic lighting and the sunbeams coming down and the dappled light. And I think sometimes those things don't get properly conveyed in a line sketch. So sometimes, and not every, and I guess similarly, not every thing is going to get conveyed in just a color sketch, right? With just values and shapes. Sometimes it's going to be other things. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I'm just ranting and rambling. James Gurney's great. Or maybe the focal point is where you want the eye to go, but as the object, they might not be on the focal point to make a certain feeling. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a good example. I forget what I mean, I could draw the thing, but I don't remember the context. I think it was like a movie still from a no, it wasn't a movie. And the reason I say it wasn't a movie is because I don't want it to be a movie. No, it was a still image that I saw. But basically, there was like a car, like off screen, and the dude, gosh, I don't remember. Basically, there was, no, maybe it was like a car with its headlights. And like, there was a guy or something, like, over here. Like, the focal point was like on the edge, right? I don't remember what was happening, but the focal point was on the edge. But the reason that it worked, not in this image, but like in the image that I'm explaining, the reason it worked was because the eye was actually like crossing the whole screen. And so the weighting was kind of like, it was like the character was looking at something, or like the character was walking. I forgot what it was. I don't remember. The character might have been walking or something, and like your eyes visually weighted were going to where he was going to go, like they were spanning from here to the car or something. So like visually there was like weight in the middle of the painting, right? Because your eyes were crossing that space, and it wasn't just focusing on the guy, it was looking where he was going, right? So the focal point wasn't actually either of the objects in the scene, it was kind of between them or something. This is not a great example because I don't remember the example, but it was something similar to that where it was the movement of the character looking somewhere that gave it a weight that wasn't just the character. Right? It's kind of like when you point at something, right? And most people know to look where you're pointing, right? But like dogs and cats will look at your finger. And I feel like what I'm talking about is like the equivalent of looking at the finger. Just because you have a character pointing and that character is technically the focal point doesn't mean you should only look at them, right? Sometimes you look at what they're doing. Like you look at where they're pointing, right? Because that's the obvious thing to do, right? So you can, if you were to have a character pointing, right, you wouldn't want them, for example, pointing this way, right? Because if here's your character and they're pointing that way, like that's weird, right? This feels off balanced, right? Because you are literally going from them off the page, right? Or like there's a weight, it doesn't have to be a pointing, right? It could just be a looking, right? There's a weightiness to it because they're literally drawing your eye off the page. But not with line, but with implied movement or whatever. Anyway, so that I feel like that's a thing that isn't talked about that often in composition, and it's like it's more about the weightiness of things rather than like place it on the third, right? It's like, okay, the weight can fall on the third, but the objects don't need to, and I think that's sort of the thing that I'm trying to get at, and even just trying to articulate it better because I don't think I'm great at it. Anyway, let's keep painting. Let's keep doing this thing that we're doing. Some white floofy clouds. I do like this though so far. It's kind of a Okay, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take just a new layer. I think I understand. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I think the whole concept isn't terribly difficult, but I do feel like it's one of those things that because you oftentimes do composition so early, and I guess that's another point that I'm getting at, is because you do composition so early that sometimes you don't have all the info to properly evaluate if it's gonna look good. And I think this is also why sometimes like my sketches will look nice, but then I'll start adding, refining stuff, and sort of the balance of the whole image changes, right? It could be that it just now gets more stiff and you don't have as much movement, but also it could be that it just doesn't feel balanced anymore because maybe you've added weight or removed it by accident because you were, adding values and changing things, and, so that could be an issue. And I feel like that kind of thing is pretty much what I'm talking about. Also, I'm trying to do like a vignette here. I don't know the best way to do this. I mean, I don't know if those are actually the same, because I think, I've always heard of people explain sort of the sketch versus final, the discrepancy between the quality in a different way. But I feel like that could be an interesting, like, I'm curious if that's the whole story, right? Because I feel like you could also make the argument for, the focal point can actually move from the sketch to the final, even though if it's physically on the same spot. But like the contrast is now no longer the same as in your sketch, right? In a black and white sketch, the contrast is basically where you engineer it, right? It's like it's the characters, it's the people, right? You look at people because people are natural focal points. But I think once you start painting stuff, you can kind of make, due to other elements, right, to other things like values, you can make the people kind of fade into the background, and they don't always stand out as much because everything doesn't have equal value all of a sudden. Suddenly you can push and pull attention. And I think sometimes just in the process of detailing things, right, people's attention gets pulled elsewhere. I mean, that's kind of the point with like over detailing, right? You're creating unintentional, I guess people do talk about that, creating unintentional focal points. Never mind. I don't know what I'm going on about. People literally talk about this topic all the time. I just didn't ever. I was just thought I was. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, I should stop talking. It's interesting how you brought photography. Like, kind of everything you said felt similar to what I learned. I mean, yeah, I mean, I get. Yeah, composition is the same in painting as in photography, right? It's literally just 2D image composition. It should be the same, in theory. I mean, I would imagine a lot of people's photos aren't the same because if you don't do a lot of editing or something, I could see the case where photos, especially like in HDR, right, everything's in focus. I could see an argument made for you need your focal point on a natural focal point, right? True, you do see, but you can still do like editing and focusing and stuff like that, right? Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right in that the majority of the time, like natural focal points, like where your eyes just want to go, kind of, and obviously using leading lines to focus on them, but I feel like it's probably a little bit more obvious with the camera. Yeah, that's a good point. But it's still pretty much the same concepts of like what actually looks good. The end result is the same, right? Yeah, you're right in that. Yeah, the process is different. True. Different process, same end result though. You're still relying on the same principles. If there's something that's gonna grab your attention, yeah. I mean, that was my initial point, was that sometimes people typically say map out your composition early and not tweak it a ton later, which is kind of interesting because I think from a procedural point of view, that can be really hard to do well because you don't always know what's going to change. Like if you haven't thought about your values, you're going to have to make sure you restrict yourself to certain styles of, to certain values that keep the focus where you want it, right? Instead of sort of engineering your painting in such a way that, I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe I'm not making it sense. I'm too tired. Why am I still awake? Oh no. Okay. I am going to try to keep painting a little bit. I do like this. But yeah, I think composition is just, I don't know. I like it. I think it's fascinating. I feel like sometimes it feels not complicated at all and extremely simple. But then also times I think there's actually a lot of nuance to it, and I don't know. I never really know where I stand. Like, I don't feel like it's a terribly difficult thing, but also there are some really bizarre and just like unintuitive paintings that you would look at and like, wow, that actually really works, and I never would have thought that worked. I guess probably a lot of it is just focusing on the, what's that saying? I think it's an economics thing, right? Or it's like, I think it was regarding like the guy who invented the term for GDP. It was like once the measurement becomes the, I'm probably butchering both who said it, when it was said, and what it relates to, but like the idea that once the measurement becomes the goal, like using GDP as a measurement for how well, as like a proxy for how well a country is doing, but once it becomes a goal to have a high GDP, it's no longer useful, right? Because there are going to be cases where you can raise that metric without actually making the thing good, right? It's sort of like perspective, right? If you're using perspective as a metric for what a good painting has, and say maybe it has consistent perspective, if you're so hung up on making everything pinpoint accurate, it can actually take away from the end goal, because the goal wasn't to make accurate perspective, right? The goal was to make a nice painting. And by overly focusing on perspective, your painting is not as interesting as it could have been, right? And I think that works really well in painting too, right? Some people are so hung up on the metrics for like, oh, your values have to be perfectly like this. It's like, no, the goal isn't perfect values. The goal is a nice painting. Sometimes if you're overly focused on, you know, making the anatomy pinpoint perfect, right? It's like, well, now your composition sucks, right? If you're so focused on a perfect composition, you might have other things wrong, right? I feel like it's not always, I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and overly focus on the metric of how do we evaluate our painting, which, don't get me wrong, I love. It's honestly one of my favorite things about art, is like learning about what makes a good painting. But at the end of the day, they are all just metrics we use to judge our painting, and they shouldn't be the goal in and of themselves. Right, like you have to have an actual goal of your painting. That's how I see it anyway. I don't remember the exact quote, but yeah, that's context for it. Oh, is it? Okay, I wasn't sure if that's actually where it came from, but I believe I only know it in relation to that, but yeah. But yeah, anyway, somehow I tied that back to art. Who knew? Economics and art? Totally. But no, I do think that's a thing, though, and I was thinking about that today at work. That's what I do at work, is just think about stupid stuff like that. That's how important my job is. And yeah, if you're only focusing on the values of a painting, that's not really a painting anymore. Well, no, what I'm saying is I think some people's notions of, so okay, for example, I don't think that's quite what I mentioned. Sorry, that's not quite what I meant though, Jay. I think I maybe misspoke or didn't explain myself very well. What I'm meaning is, like, for example, there are certain ideas around, say, what are good values, right? And for example, a common one is your darkest color should be next to your brightest color, right? It's for maximum contrast, right? Almost like a rule. Like, okay, well, if here is your focal point, right? And it makes sense, right? There's a logic to it, right? Oftentimes it is the case that you want your highest point of contrast, which essentially will mean your brightest and your darkest color, and this is not a bad way to set up your painting, right? But if you're so focused on this rule, there are going to be some paintings, for example, that don't have this rule, right? What happens when your painting doesn't have that rule, but you try to force that rule onto it because you're overly focused on values, right? It might be the case, and I'm going to have to find a painting, I think, to explain this. It might be the case that, I mean, why didn't we watch a video yesterday? Let me go to YouTube. Gosh, I'm not going to be able to find it in my... Art Sunday art. Let's see. Anyway, he painted like a spooky painting. Well, okay, I'm not gonna find the video but anyway, the painting was very dim. Let's put it that way, right? It was a very dim painting. It was not vibrant. It was kind of like this. There wasn't really a bright spot in the painting, but there were a few bright spots, and it was like I think the brightest spot was like a light or something, and the light really wasn't a focal point. It was more of a leading line to the focal point, right? So I think, if I remember correctly, there was like, he had a roof in here, and it was kind of bright, but it wasn't the brightest part, right? He was painting like it's painting like a foresty scene, and it was like there was light coming through the trees, but it really was not the brightest part. The brightest part was like some innocuous light, just like a kind of a dimmish light, you know, down here or something, but not super dim. So anyway, I guess my point is that it wasn't like the brightest next to the lightest, right? Because the focal, like the scene wasn't set up in such a way that the lights were the focal point. They were just there to help illuminate the scene, right? But they happen to be the brightest thing. So I think if you were to paint a scene like this, like let's say you have this house here, right? And then maybe you have, I don't know, trees and things. It might be the case that you're inclined to like, oh, well, I've got to crank up the saturation on here because I want to make this really bright, or, you know, or, oh, I need to make these parts, right? I need to make this stuff the darkest because these lights need to be surrounded by pure dark, right? And you could end up ruining your values as a result because you're overly focused on sort of this rule or this metric for judging art instead of actually just saying, does the painting look good, right? Because these rules aren't perfect, right? They're not rules. Anyway, that's more my point, is that being over, like, you can actually harm your painting by trying to match everything up perfectly on the thirds, right? Sometimes the focal points just aren't good on the thirds because if you move the characters to the thirds, now that's going to feel off balance with the rest of the painting, right? So it's not like that's my point, is that I think people can adhere to it. I mean, if you've ever seen a painting that looks good with a center composition, if you were just to drag and drop that center thing onto like a rule of third, it'd probably ruin it, right? It's not going to make it better. It's like it's already looking good. And that's my point, is that I think it's... Anyway. Meadow, thank you for the follow, and Staple Walk, and Winston. How are all of you? El Sadiq, long time no see. It has been... Yes, it's been a while. It has been a while. How are you? And thank you. But yeah, I was just thinking about the whole thing about art and forgetting about actually making a nice painting as opposed to, or whatever, not even making a nice painting. Think whatever your goal is. Your goal may not be a nice painting. Oh, I have an idea. I don't know if this is going to be a good idea, but it's an idea. My brain's too tired for this. Let me just add some light. I just want to try something. I don't know if this is going to be good or not. Maybe some poofy clouds. Maybe not over here. I feel like there's something here. I feel like I want some low-hanging clouds. Something like that. And this shape, I don't like these shapes. I think they need some more variance over here. Some more interesting contours. Same for in here. I mean, I know this is just the edge of the painting. It's not that important, but I'm good, thanks. I've gotten back to doing thumbnails because it's great exercise. I actually got the idea from you. Oh, that's cool. And yeah, it's been a long time. If you want to share anything that you've been up to, let me know. Or feel free to drop a link in chat or something. Always curious to what people are working on, and it's exciting to see you again. I feel like it's been a long time, actually. I don't know how long it's been, but it feels like a long time. But yeah, I think thumbnails are great if you don't have ideas. Or I guess even if you do have ideas, they're great for like solving actual issues in your painting, like other things. Like composition. But I mostly just use it for ideas. I don't know if this lighting thing looks good. Kind of doesn't. It's probably too high contrast. I'm just trying to make it fun with lots of swooshy shapes and kind of dynamic. I might end up ruining the contrast though. I feel like we need something on this other side though. Like on the right side, kind of leading the eye into the painting. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can bring in some of this stuff. With like a little bit of a something like that. I realize how loose this is, but that's okay. If I end up wanting to finish this, I'll have at least a base to start. I remember you saying something about going to Austria. Yeah, I went to Austria. I just got back on the 15th, so I've been back for like 2 weeks now. And yeah, it was amazing. I want to go back already. It wasn't long enough. At all. I just want to live there, actually. That's my... Yeah. Alright. Adding some little things that stick up. Some little stuffs and things. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I was lurking and saw my player broke on me. Did the internet crash again? I don't think so. But I did drop like 50 frames. So maybe. Love the colors in the space. Thanks. But yeah, Scale, I don't think I dropped. No one said I disconnected. And I don't think... Yeah, I don't think so. It says for me the stream started 57 minutes ago, so it must have been... Oh, okay. Oh, it must have then. Oh, weird. Does it say that for anyone else? Oh, that's weird. Wait, so are you telling me I disconnected and it didn't tell... Like, nobody alerted me? Wait. So it did disconnect then. How long was I out? I wonder how long I was disconnected for. I have genuinely no idea because I didn't even know my internet. Dang, that sucks. So I remember reading on Reddit, there was somebody who did like, they said like, I just streamed for 6 hours and I realized I never went live, which is both sad and hilarious at the same time. But they said they went live, but they didn't apparently because they never actually were live. They just thought they would hit live. And that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. Like, what? I was just not here for a long time and didn't even know it. Can you imagine though? That would both suck and like, and obviously this was like a pretty new person. You know, they probably had an average of 1 or 0 viewers, so they didn't know because there wasn't anyone chatting anyway. So like they didn't know. Wow, chat's really quiet. Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of people. I mean, there's some statistic like, I don't know what the number is, but like 90% of everyone who streams will never hit more than like 3 average viewers or something. I don't know if that's true. That might be a made-up stat. I mean, I totally made it up. But it's something like that. It's some huge number, like in the 90s or something. A vast majority of people will never get over like 2 or 3 average viewers. Because it's just, it's really hard to discover when you're that low. So anyway, it's not surprising. Like, a lot of people go many streams without having viewership, and it sucks, but that's kind of the reality of streaming. I mean, I think there's ways to, be smart about it and to get that number up early on by like inviting friends and stuff, but yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. But anyway, the whole streaming and not knowing that you're not live thing, that sucks. I'm gonna have to check the VOD though. Okay, if this is light, this is gonna be... Okay, I'm going to come in here and just start scattering the heck out of this painting. Scatter brush galore. This is gonna be my... Okay, and then some of these little floofy clouds, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to take like I feel like I should take a purple, but I don't really have any purple in here. Maybe I'll just take a darker blue. I don't really like doing that, but... Love the blues and greens. Thanks. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's see. This side of these clouds can totally be shadows. No, I'm just trying to just go overboard with the clouds and just stuff in the background. I realize they're very blurry right now, but I think there's something to it that could be fun. Oh, Joe, it's so pretty. Oh, thanks. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. It's very blurry, which is kind of the theme of today. The theme of today is blurry. Also, what the heck? I'm already almost at 4 hours. Okay, I gotta end stream. I don't know where time is going. No, yeah, what the heck? I know everyone's talking about I've only been live for 50 minutes, which apparently Twitch died on me and I didn't notice. So that's something. But that's okay. Who knows? Maybe it's happened before. Maybe I've lost connection before and I've never known because no one's ever pointed it out. I don't like these. That's not a nice shape. I don't know, man. It says 1 hour, so you can't log off so quick. Right? Yeah, totally. Super short stream today. Only an hour. Just kidding. I have been live for 4 hours, almost. But before I do... I do want to maybe... adjust a little bit how I do some of this other stuff back here. Just lots and lots of poofy stuff. Poof galore. All the poof. Thank you for the follow, Mirovan. How are you? How are you today? And anyone who came in before I crashed and then reloaded the page, thank you. I guess. I appreciate it. I didn't know I had crashed, but apparently. This is going to be like the mystery for a long time. I'm going to be talking about this for a while. Be like, how the heck? Anyway. Let's see. What do I like about this? Something. I'm sure I like something about it. What don't I like about it? I mean, just a general unfinished... I mean, it's weird. I don't really care about it being finished, but I do think there's a lot of opportunity to smudge and to have interesting shapes and edges. So let's see, if this is the light, and the light's coming in here, maybe, so like light, I mean, we don't really have a super strong light source. It's kind of dappled light, if anything. It's not a very strong, it's not a very strong sense of lighting. But maybe I can change that by pushing around some of this and making some interesting dappled light shapes. That could be a thing. Push some of this light around. It might also, I mean, I don't want to go too heavy-handed in the foreground though. That isn't really the point, but I guess that's also a reason I can go very, very... And then some in here I could put little tighter strands of water. But yeah, thank you for the follows. Diva and Miravan. Hope you're doing well. Something like that's kind of cool. I don't think I have a strong enough focal point right here. No, sorry, not focal point. That's not the word I'm looking for. But like separation of background and all that. I think just a little bit of, I mean, it's good to have it kind of soft, right? Because it is super far away. But I do feel like Joe, can I share something silly I drew with you? Yes, you can. Definitely. I'm always up for silly paintings. Or even not silly paintings. I'm always up for paintings. I will say, I don't think I'm super great at like good edges yet. It's something that I want to get better at. I don't know. Maybe I'm not that bad at them. I do feel like I'm getting the hang of it the more that I do it, which makes sense. But I still don't have like a good framework for what good edges are. Like sometimes, like I have a few, right? Like our merge like shapes together if they're nearby. Shadows oftentimes will, you don't have a ton of detail in the shadows typically. And so you can simplify shadow shapes, but not always. So yeah, sometimes it's hard. Anyway, let's take a look. Oh, that is silly. Dang, that is one beautiful dinosaur. Very beautiful. I like it. Very nice. That is a dinosaur, right? Forgive me if that's not a dino. Looks like some sort of dinosaur. Okay. Jay says, I was doing a value study. Bad at painting cats, but I think I got the values pretty good. Oh, yeah, I think it works. Yeah, I think the only thing that stands out for me is sort of like the no, I mean I think it works pretty well. I mean in some ways your values are probably more clear. I mean I think there's some shape confusion just because I know it wasn't focused on perspective. But yeah, no, I mean I think it's clear, right? The highest contrast is in the foreground. Maybe with an exception of like some of the very background stuff with like the sky's almost white, but like the cat stands out super well. Um, yeah, I think it works really well as a value study. I like it. I like it. I think one thing that the painting actually does really well, which is kind of unique, I think, in the photo. Sorry, the one thing the photo does really well, which I think is actually quite unique in photography, is the values between the foreground part of the building and the ground. It's actually because you have all this noise. It looks like old concrete or something. It's almost just a perfect gradient. It's almost like a seamless. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like instead of having here, maybe I can draw it. Like instead of having the right like a white wall back here, and then of course you had like your cat and stuff, right? And then there was, stuff like that. So here's the cat. But like it actually kind of just was a nice smooth gradient, almost from like light to dark, because there was like little dark spots speckled in. So I mean technically it wasn't just a gradient, but it acted as a gradient because there's just this, it was a super smooth transition, which I think is a nice way to keep the focus on the main element, right? And of course, the element can have like things like that. I mean, it was different, right? But like, also, what the heck? That's weird looking. But anyway, so I thought that was kind of cool. And then, of course, back here, it got pretty dark as well, which was a nice additional thing in the photo. It had some dark shapes, but yeah, it was kind of cool. I feel like that's a really nice photo because it's both the main thing has both light and dark on it. Anyway. I feel like I want to just color dodge the heck out of this because there is no focal point or anything. Or sorry, not focal point. There's no lighting. I just want to go like just shine the light on it and make it look ridiculous. I mean, we kind of put some light, some dappled light. Just lighting the whole thing like crazy. Maybe some blue. I don't know. I'm just goofing around. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm about ready to end stream. This is just my way of prolonging stream. Ooh, actually, I like this. Hold up. Hold up. I've found it. Okay, we're gonna go like this. I like this blue-purple. This is just fun. This is my... Okay, this is new colors. I don't know if it's good. It might be a bit much. Maybe maybe my eyes are just broken because I'm so tired. But, oh, let me... I've realized this could be me overdoing it a bit. I mean, maybe a bit. There, we'll go like that. Meet somewhere in the middle. But I like these purples, and I was thinking about adding purple before. Okay, kind of vignetting this. I don't really like the word vignette. Okay, anyway, there's that. I'm trying to bring in some of the... I like the purples a lot. Yeah, they're kind of subtle, and I like them as well. I think they work nice in the sky, too. And let's see, light's coming from there, so this side can be in shade, which means these we can get some of that purple back in here. I can just manually paint it in. Hopefully I didn't overdo it. And I feel like if I were to finish this, I could actually put some little flower, like wildflowers in here with this sort of purpley color. Because they almost are the same value as the green. And they're not really a focal point. I still think value-wise I've probably goofed this up a little bit, but I think it works. Not really. I definitely need to simplify. Values are a little intense right now. Maybe there's a way to do this before I end stream. Like, I know people like... Yo. Yo, yo. Yo. Oh, you're saying yo to Spiritless Wolf. Yo, Spiritless Wolf, how are you? Anyway, I should be ending by now. Do we have... Can I simplify values anywhere? I mean, kinda, right? Like, I feel like I can do that here. But I don't just want to make everything darker. I don't know, maybe I don't need to. I mean, maybe here in the sky. I don't know, this is weird. I'm struggling here. How are you, Joe? I am doing well. I am doing well. Trying to figure out how to end stream because I'm hungry, I need food, and I'm tired, but my brain is like, when I'm tired, I still have like the same, like, oh, I want to make sure this is something I'm okay with ending on. Anyway. Wait, I'm not Joe. You're not Joe. You're Jay. Pretty similar, though. Maybe you are a Joe. I don't know. It's possible your name is Joe. And I just didn't know that. Anyway, let's end here. I think I'm happy with this. I think I'm happy with this painting for today. It's very something. It's something. All right, we're gonna raid this person. Just kidding. I don't know who I'm raiding yet. I'm still looking. Still looking to see who I'm going to raid. Does anyone have any suggestions? Although, actually, maybe not. Hold on. Hold on. Let's see who's on first. I kind of want to raid somebody who we raid a lot because I'm going to just be lurking. Oh. That person is cool, but I haven't been to their stream in like two years. All right, we're gonna go to Chlor. I know we go there all the time, and maybe you guys, I hope none of you are tired of Chlor because I don't know. I mean, I guess you guys, if you don't like where we go, you can always go in your own place. But yeah, so here is Chlor. Ooh, she's painting some very vibrant stuff. Yeah, I mean, Chlor is always good. So yeah, we're gonna go raid Chlor. Thank you guys all for being here. If for some reason you want a direct link to Chlor's channel, there it is. And yeah, nighty night. Take care. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you on Thursday. I do have a Discord if anyone wants to join. I also have a Patreon if anyone wants to support me further. I also upload time lapses of every stream to Patreon with a little blurb of what I kind of like a self-critique. Anyway, yeah, take care, be well, and hydrate and stretch and all this stuff. Thank you for the follow. Last minute, Overick, I am leaving, but thank you. And yeah, go say hi to Chlor. She's doing environment. Today's painting didn't turn out terrible, I think, for being as tired as I am. I certainly liked last stream. Oops, that wasn't last stream's painting. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I'm just gonna ramble until stream auto raids. But this is the painting we did last stream, which is not last stream. We did a couple. This was a while back. But anyway, this is like 2 streams ago or 3. But anyway, yeah, be well. See ya.